For centuries, we've begged gods for answers, but what if you've been praying to a mirror? The Buddha once said, worshipping gods is like bowing to your own reflection. But here's the revolution. That mirror holds more power than any god. This isn't about denying divinity, it's about a truth so raw it doesn't need heaven's approval. And if there's no all-powerful God pulling the strings, who holds the power? The answer isn't just revolutionary, it's the key to unlocking everything you've been seeking. By the end of this video, you'll stop searching for meaning, because the key was in your hands all along. The night was moonless, the forest eerily still. After years of searching, Siddhartha Gautama sat beneath the Bodhi tree, determined not to rise until he'd discovered the truth about suffering. According to Buddhist texts, as dawn approached, on this final night of his quest, he faced his greatest challenge, not in the form of some horned devil, but something far more subtle and insidious. Mara appeared, not Satan as Western traditions might conceive, but the personification of delusion itself. Mara deployed every weapon in his arsenal, first sending his beautiful daughters to seduce Siddhartha, then armies of demons to terrify him, and finally, a direct challenge to his very right to seek enlightenment. By what authority do you sit in this sacred place? Mara demanded. Who bears witness to your right to attain enlightenment? This was the pivotal moment. In a world dominated by Brahmanical traditions, where spiritual authority came from the gods, from lineage, from external validation, what could this solitary man claim as his source of authority? Siddhartha didn't look toward the heavens. He didn't recite scripture or invoke divine names. Instead, he simply reached down and touched the earth with his right hand. The earth itself bears witness to my right to be here, he said. The earth, which had supported him through countless lifetimes of effort, which held the memory of his perseverance, was all the authority he needed. No appeals to heavenly authority, no divine intervention, just raw, embodied truth confirmed by direct experience. This moment reveals something profound about you too. Your right to be here, to seek truth, to find peace, doesn't depend on divine permission or external validation. Your existence itself is your authority, your consciousness, your capacity. To question and understand is all you need to begin the journey. Here's what this means for you. Instead of surrendering your power to an external force, Buddhism invites you to recognize the extraordinary potential that already exists within you. Today we'll explore 5 key areas that build toward understanding what it means to become one. When I talk about becoming one, I'm not speaking about merging with some distant deity. I'm talking about realizing your inherent interconnectedness with all things, recognizing your Buddha nature, the seed of enlightenment that exists within every being. When you tap into that, you don't become something greater. You finally recognize who you've truly been all along. First, we'll examine the philosophical foundations of Buddhist non-theism, why it differs from both theism and atheism. Second, we'll discover what replaces God in the Buddhist worldview, with a special focus on you and your potential. Third, we'll look at how Buddhist ethics provides a framework for living well without divine commandments. Fourth, we'll clarify the role gods actually play in Buddhist cosmology and practice. Finally, we'll explore practical steps for realizing your potential to become one with ultimate reality. This brings us to Buddhist non-theism. Walking through the villages of northern India, the Buddha encountered many who asked about the gods. His answers consistently surprised them because he never denied the existence of deities outright. It's not that gods don't exist, they do in Buddhist cosmology, but they're as trapped in samsara, the cycle of suffering and rebirth, as we are. They have longer, more pleasurable lives, but they too face impermanence and eventual death. As he lay dying at age 80, surrounded by grieving disciples, the Buddha didn't point to the heavens or promise divine reunion. He didn't offer comfort through stories of celestial rewards. Instead, in his final teaching, he emphasized the truth he'd taught from the beginning. All conditioned things are impermanent. Strive on with diligence. Be lamps unto yourselves, he said. Rely upon yourselves. Hold firm to the truth as a lamp. Hold firm to the truth as a refuge. Look not for refuge to anyone besides yourselves. The Buddha's last teaching, as recorded in various translations, includes the phrase "be lamps unto yourselves" or "be islands unto yourselves," urging his followers to rely on themselves and the teachings, Dhamma, as their refuge. The Pali word Deepa can be translated as either lamp or island, creating a beautiful ambiguity. Be your own source of light, your own place of refuge. This is the essence of Buddhist self-reliance, not arrogant self-sufficiency or rugged individualism, but recognition that the tools for liberation are already within you. Your awareness, your capacity for compassion, your inherent wisdom, when unclouded by delusion, these are the resources that lead to freedom. It's important to understand that Buddhist non-theism isn't the same as Western atheism, despite superficial similarities. The difference becomes clear when we look at their approaches. Imagine two people rejecting monarchy. An atheist yells death to kings while smashing statues and burning palaces. His identity forms around opposition. A Buddhist non-theist quietly removes the crown, saying, "You were never truly royal to begin with. Your power was always an illusion we collectively created." Then they walk away unconcerned to focus on more pressing matters of human suffering. That's the fundamental difference. Buddhism doesn't deny God like Richard Dawkins or Christopher Hitchens. It simply renders the concept irrelevant to the project of liberation. The Buddha consistently steered conversations away from metaphysical speculation toward practical concerns of human suffering and its end. The Dalai Lama often says, if science proves some Buddhist belief wrong, we must change. This empirical spirit makes Buddhist non-theism a science of consciousness rather than anti-religious crusade. This approach is built on three philosophical foundations that challenge the concept of a creator God. First, karma, over commandments. Buddhism replaces divine law with natural law. Actions bring suffering not because they anger a deity, but because they operate under natural moral causality. Like touching fire burns your hand, whether you believe in fire or not. Harmful actions create suffering through their inherent nature. This puts the power directly in your hands to shape your experience through understanding causality, not through pleasing an external authority. Second, infinite regression problem. The philosophical problem haunting monotheism has always been, if God created everything, what created God? And what created that creator? The explanations quickly become circular or appeal to special exceptions. Buddhism sidesteps this endless loop by focusing on observable causes and conditions rather than hypothesizing untestable first causes. Instead of an ultimate beginning, it proposes beginningless time. This sidesteps the philosophical trap by recognizing that causality itself is cyclical. The universe doesn't need a first cause. It functions through interdependent arising, where everything conditions everything else. This frees you from needing to find that impossible first cause and invites you to focus on the web of causes and conditions in your actual life. Third, empirical ultimatum. Perhaps most radically, the Buddha insisted we test everything. Through direct experience, he told the Kalama people, do not believe anything on mere hearsay, do not believe in traditions because they are old, or in authority, or in scriptures, but after observation and analysis, when you find that anything agrees with reason and is conducive to the good and benefit of one and all, then accept it and live up to it. This commitment to evidence over dogma means you're never asked to believe anything you can't verify yourself. Your direct experience becomes the ultimate authority. This empirical approach reached its zenith with Emperor Ashoka in the 3rd century BCE. After a bloody campaign conquered the Kalinga region, Ashoka was so disturbed by the suffering he'd caused that he converted to Buddhism. Transformed, he established what might be the world's first large-scale program of religious tolerance. Across his vast empire, Ashoka erected stone pillars with edicts promoting ethical governance. One states, one should not honor only one's own religion and condemn others, but honor others' religions for various reasons. By so doing, one helps one's own religion to grow and renders service to the religions of others. In a world where "my God is the only true God" dominated religious discourse, this radical tolerance stemmed directly from the Buddha's non-theistic approach. When gods are not ultimate authorities, but fellow travelers in samsara, religious diversity becomes less threatening. If there's no all-powerful God at the center of it all, what takes its place? Here's the truth most people aren't ready for. The absence of a ruler doesn't mean chaos. It means responsibility. And that changes everything. In the foothills of the Himalayas, a Western seeker once asked a Buddhist master, "If there's no creator God, then what's the point of all this? Who's in charge?" The master pointed to a rushing mountain stream nearby and replied, "Does that water need someone to be in charge, or does it simply flow according to its nature?" The questioner watched the water finding its path around rocks, forming eddies and pools, all without central command. In that moment, he glimpsed a universe that operates not through divine micromanagement, but through the lawful unfolding of causes and conditions. Without a creator God, you might wonder what fills that seemingly enormous space in Buddhism. The answer is both liberating and challenging. You do. Not in an egocentric "you are God" way that merely substitutes self-worship for deity worship, but in recognizing that the capacity for awakening comes from within, not from above. This freedom comes with responsibility. There's no divine plan to fall back on, no cosmic parent figure handling everything behind the scenes. Your choices matter because they're truly yours. When things go wrong, there's no divine punishment to blame. When things go right, there's no divine favoritism to credit. This isn't meant to be overwhelming, but empowering. You're the author of your life's meaning. Many people worry about the God-shaped hole, that without divine presence, life feels empty or meaningless. Buddhism doesn't try to fill this hole with another externality. Instead, it questions the hole itself. The emptiness you feel isn't from lacking God, but from misunderstanding your own nature and clinging to permanence in an impermanent world. It's like searching desperately for water while swimming in the ocean. The very thing you seek is what you're already immersed in, if only you could recognize it. Let's explore the core Buddhist concepts that replace the God function, each offering something valuable for your life. Suffering, dukkha, is the first truth Buddha recognized. Imagine someone who worked 80-hour weeks for 15 years to make partner at their law firm. The day they achieved this goal, their supposed finish line, they felt a momentary happiness followed by a strange emptiness. Is this it? They wondered. Within weeks, they were just as stressed and dissatisfied as before, only with new pressures and problems. This experience points to what Buddhism calls dukkha, a pervasive sense that something's always a little off. This isn't just physical pain, but a subtle dissatisfaction that follows us even in good times. You felt it when you finally get something you wanted, only to find it doesn't satisfy as expected, or when good moments fade too quickly, or when you achieve your goals only to find new worries taking their place. Buddhism says this dissatisfaction stems not from divine punishment or human sinfulness, but from misunderstanding reality's nature. Recognizing this pattern is your first step toward greater peace. Impermanence, anicca, follows naturally. Imagine someone who treasured a handmade ceramic mug from their grandmother. One morning, it slipped from their hand and shattered on the kitchen floor. Their initial rush of anger and loss gradually transformed into a deeper appreciation for everything still intact in their life, including their memories of their grandmother that no broken object could take away. Everything changes. Your body, thoughts, relationships, possessions. The new car smell fades, the promotion excitement wears off. Even our loved ones won't be here forever. Rather than seeing this as tragic, Buddhism invites you to see how impermanence makes life precious. A sunset is beautiful precisely because it doesn't last forever. Your child's youth is precious because it's fleeting. When you stop fighting change, you can appreciate what's here now and suffer less when it inevitably transforms. Non-self, anatta, is perhaps the most profound teaching. A cognitive neuroscientist spent years studying the brain's activity during meditation. The more I examined the self scientifically, he explains, the more elusive it became. We can locate regions responsible for different functions, but there's no self-center, just interconnected processes. What's fascinating is that Buddhist practitioners discovered this through direct experience 2,500 years before we had brain scanners. This is perhaps Buddhism's most radical teaching. It doesn't mean you don't exist, but that the self isn't what you think. Look closely at your experience. Where exactly is this permanent, separate I? Your body changes constantly, with cells dying and being replaced. Your thoughts come and go like weather. Your personality shifts with circumstances. You're different with your boss than with your best friend. Even your memories constantly change as your brain reconsolidates them. Buddhism suggests your true nature is both less solid and more expansive than you imagine. You're not a separate entity, but a flowing process deeply interconnected with everything else. The boundaries between you and everything else are more permeable than they appear. This is the foundation of becoming one, recognizing that the hard line between self and other is a useful convention for everyday life, but not an ultimate truth. Like a wave that thinks it's separate from the ocean, you are a distinct form, but not a separate essence from the rest of reality. The boundaries you perceive between yourself and the world are conceptual, not absolute. Karma is often misunderstood as cosmic punishment or reward. Forget supernatural scorekeeping. Karma simply means action and its consequences. Like planting seeds that grow into specific plants, your choices create corresponding results. Harmful actions create suffering. Beneficial ones create well-being. When you lie, you create a world where trust is diminished. When you practice generosity, you create a world where abundance flows more freely. This operates through natural causality, not divine judgment. The power is yours. You're creating your experience through countless choices, and you can change your life by changing those choices. Mindfulness is the practical tool that ties everything together. It's the moment-to-moment awareness of your experience without judgment. Through mindfulness, you observe your thoughts and feelings rather than being controlled by them. This creates space between stimulus and response, allowing you to choose your actions rather than reacting from habit. Most of us live lost in thoughts about the past or future, missing the only moment we ever actually experience. Regular mindfulness practice reduces stress, improves focus, and helps you see through habitual patterns. Even 5 minutes daily of simply noticing your breath can begin to transform your relationship with your own mind. Mindfulness is both the method and the goal. As you become more present, you naturally begin to experience the interconnectedness that is the essence of becoming one. Each of these principles isn't just philosophical, it's practical. They don't require faith in the supernatural. They invite verification through your own experience. Unlike beliefs about God that must be accepted on faith, these truths become increasingly evident as you observe your own life. As you integrate these understandings, something remarkable happens. The boundaries between yourself and others begin to soften. You start to recognize that your well-being is inseparable from the well-being of others. This isn't a belief imposed from outside. It emerges naturally from your deepening insight into reality. This is the beginning of becoming one. This is Buddhism's practical superpower. It's the foundation for all Buddhist insights and doesn't require belief in anything supernatural. So if you hold the power, then what stops this from turning into a free-for-all? Without a divine judge, why be good? The answer isn't written in commandments. It's woven into the fabric of reality itself. In rural Thailand, a Buddhist monk named Ajahn Chah was asked by a Western visitor, "Without God's commandments, how do you know what's right and wrong?" The monk picked up an unripe mango and asked, "If you eat this now, what happens?" The visitor replied it would cause a stomachache. Ajahn Chah nodded and said, "And if you wait until it's ripe, it will be sweet and nourishing," came the reply. Nature itself teaches the proper time for things, the monk explained. Harmful actions are like eating unripe fruit. No need for commandments to know the stomachache that follows. How do you know right from wrong without divine commandments? Buddhism offers a sophisticated ethical framework based not on pleasing a deity, but on understanding cause and effect in human experience. In many traditions, morality flows directly from divine authority, what philosophers call divine command theory, the idea that actions are good because God commands them. Unlike divine command theory, where morality is determined by God's commands and could theoretically change if God commanded differently, Buddhist ethics emerge from observing what actions lead to suffering and what actions lead to well-being for yourself and others. Morality isn't arbitrary or externally imposed. It's discoverable through careful observation, like learning which plants are nutritious and which are poisonous. At the foundation of Buddhist ethics are 5 precepts that guide behavior. The first precept is to refrain from killing or harming living beings, recognizing that all creatures wish to avoid suffering just as you do. This extends beyond humans to animals and encourages a general attitude of care for all life. The second precept is to refrain from taking what isn't freely given. This extends beyond obvious theft to include all forms of exploitation. Think about how different our world would be if everyone honored this principle. No more deception in business, no more exploitation of workers, no more environmental plunder. This precept invites you to live with integrity in all your transactions. The third precept is to refrain from sexual misconduct. This isn't about repression or shame. It's about recognizing that our sexual choices can cause profound joy or suffering. When approached with mindfulness and respect, sexual relationships become expressions of care rather than exploitation. The emphasis here is on consent, honesty, and not causing harm through our sexual conduct. The fourth precept is to refrain from false speech. The Buddha placed enormous emphasis on truthfulness, not as a divine mandate, but because dishonesty damages trust and creates internal conflict. Have you noticed how lying creates a subtle tension in your body? how maintaining deceptions requires constant vigilance and creates distance between yourself and others. Speaking truthfully allows for genuine connection. The fifth precept is to refrain from intoxication that leads to heedlessness. This isn't absolute prohibition, but rather an invitation to mindfulness. When we're intoxicated, we're more likely to break the other precepts. We lose the very awareness that allows us to make ethical choices in the first place. What makes Buddhist ethics distinctive is its emphasis on intention. The same action with different intentions produces different karmic results. A doctor who causes pain while treating a wound has very different intentions from someone who inflicts the same pain out of cruelty. Giving a gift to be praised differs from giving out of genuine compassion. This internal dimension makes ethics personal and nuanced rather than rigid and rule-bound. At the heart of Buddhist ethics is compassion, karuna, in Pali, and loving kindness, metta. These aren't just nice qualities, but skills you can develop through practice. When you truly recognize that others suffer just as you do, that they want happiness just as you do, compassion becomes the natural response to suffering. The boundary between caring for yourself and caring for others starts to dissolve. This is where Buddhist ethics directly connects to becoming one. As you live ethically, you're not just following rules, you're aligning with the interconnected nature of reality. Each ethical action is both an expression of and a step toward realizing your fundamental oneness with all life. The benefits of this approach extend in three directions. First, to yourself. Ethical living creates internal harmony rather than conflict. The peace that comes from knowing your actions aren't causing harm is immediate and tangible. Second, to your relationships. Trust, respect, and care create connections that nourish rather than deplete. And third, to the wider world, your ethical choices contribute to a more compassionate society. By living according to these principles, you're not just being good, you're creating the conditions for deeper insight. Ethical living calms the mind, allowing for the concentration necessary for wisdom to emerge. And this wisdom, in turn, reveals more clearly the interconnected nature of all things, bringing you closer to fully becoming one. But wait, didn't we say Buddhism acknowledges gods? Yes, but not the way you think. They exist, they have power. But here's the catch. They're just as lost in the game as we are. Walking through the streets of Bangkok, you'll find spirit houses outside businesses and homes, miniature temples where offerings of flowers and incense honor local deities. In Tibet, fierce protector deities with multiple arms and wrathful expressions adorn monastery walls. In Japan, Shinto gods are often incorporated into Buddhist practice, yet all these traditions consider themselves Buddhist. So what's going on? Dr. Samantha Wilson, who spent a decade studying Buddhist practices across Asia, explains. Many Westerners get confused because they approach Buddhism with an either-or mindset. Either there's a god or there isn't. Buddhism takes a both-and approach. Yes, there are gods, but no, they aren't what you might think they are. The Buddhist cosmos includes various realms populated by divine beings, but they differ fundamentally from the monotheistic creator God. These deities aren't immortal or all-powerful. They didn't create the universe. They're subject to the same laws of karma and rebirth as humans, just experiencing a more favorable but still temporary rebirth. In fact, the Buddhist texts describe how one can be reborn as a god or goddess. Through generating positive karma, it's considered a fortunate rebirth, but not the ultimate goal. Why? Because even divine beings eventually pass away when their merit is exhausted. Even gods and goddesses are impermanent. These divine beings can help within their sphere of influence. They can offer protection, remove obstacles, or provide certain kinds of blessings. This is why in many Buddhist cultures, People make offerings to these beings not as worship of ultimate reality, but as respectful requests for assistance, much as you might ask a powerful friend for help. Even Mara, the tempter who tried to prevent the Buddha's enlightenment, isn't a satanic figure of absolute evil, but another samsaric being playing his role in the cosmic drama. Perhaps most revealing about the Buddha's approach to theological questions is what scholars call the silent treatment when pressed on metaphysical questions. Is the universe eternal? Is it finite? What happens after death? The Buddha often remained silent or redirected the conversation to practical matters. In one famous discourse, when asked such questions, the Buddha told the parable of the poisoned arrow. A man shot by a poisoned arrow refuses treatment until knowing the archer's cast, height, and bow material. He dies obsessing over irrelevancies while the poison spreads. Moral? Whether the world is eternal or not, there is birth, aging, death, and the path to their end. That is what I teach. The Buddha didn't deny God, he diagnosed God as a distraction from the urgent project of addressing suffering. Professor Robert Thurman of Columbia University puts it this way: the gods in Buddhism are more like role models than ruling powers. They're like Olympic athletes of consciousness, beings who've developed certain qualities to extraordinary degrees. We don't worship them to gain favor, we study them to understand what's possible for us. This brings us back to the central theme. In Buddhism, the divine isn't something separate from you. It's what you already are beneath the clouds of confusion and conditioning. The path isn't about connecting to something external, but uncovering what was never truly separate. If gods aren't supreme and reality isn't ruled by a creator, then what's actually at the center of all this? The answer isn't a who, it's a what. And understanding it could change how you see everything. In a secluded monastery tucked in the mountains of northern Thailand, a Western businessman named Richard sat in frustration after 3 days of meditation. His legs ached, his mind raced, and enlightenment seemed impossibly distant. When he complained to the elderly abbot that he wasn't experiencing oneness with anything except his own discomfort, the monk replied with a gentle smile, "You're looking for some special experience to arrive from outside, but who is doing the looking? Who feels the pain? Before seeking oneness, know the one who seeks." This exchange points to the heart of what becoming one means in Buddhist practice. It's not about merging with some cosmic entity or achieving a particular altered state. It's about recognizing the true nature of your own mind and its relationship to everything else. It's seeing that the boundaries we take for granted between self and other, interior and exterior, subject and object, are more permeable and constructed than we realize. This one isn't a being or entity, but a recognition of the interdependent nature of all things. It's realizing what quantum physicists and ecologists have confirmed. Nothing exists in isolation. Everything co-arises in dependence on countless conditions. Your body contains atoms forged in ancient stars. Your thoughts are shaped by language and culture developed over millennia. Your emotions respond to circumstances that extend far beyond your individual story. Becoming one means awakening to this fundamental interconnectedness, not as an intellectual concept, but as lived experience. It means recognizing that you are never truly separate to begin with. The Vietnamese Zen master, Thich Nhat Hanh, calls this interbeing, the insight that nothing exists by itself alone, that everything inter-is with everything else. Becoming one doesn't mean losing your individuality, it means understanding that individuality in the context of a greater wholeness. This concept of ultimate reality is approached differently in various Buddhist traditions. Where monotheistic religions are centered on God, Buddhism is centered on the Dharma, or the ultimate truth about the way things really are. This truth isn't a belief, it's what's revealed when delusion falls away. One expression of this ultimate reality is nirvana, literally blowing out the flames of greed, hatred, and delusion. It's the cessation of suffering through the extinguishing of its causes. In the Madhyamaka or middle way tradition, ultimate reality is understood as emptiness, not nothingness, but the absence of independent inherent existence. All things exist dependently like knots in a net with no separate essence. The Yogacara, or mind-only school, understands ultimate reality as the fundamental nature of consciousness itself, beyond the subject-object duality that characterizes ordinary perception. Mahayana Buddhism speaks of Buddha nature, the inherent potential for enlightenment that exists within all beings. This isn't something you need to create or attain. It's already present, waiting to be recognized. Some traditions speak of the Trikaya, or three bodies of the Buddha. The physical body, Nirmanakaya, the body of bliss, Sambhogakaya, and the truth body, Dharmakaya. This last aspect, the Dharmakaya, represents the ultimate nature of all Buddhas and, by extension, of reality itself. Certain Tibetan traditions even speak of the Adi Buddha, a primordial Buddha that represents the ultimate nature of mind and reality. But it's important to understand that these concepts, while they may sound similar to a monotheistic God, function very differently in practice. It is clear that there is no personal monotheistic God in Buddhism, transcendent and separate from the material world, which is his creation. Buddhism doesn't posit a creator because, from the Buddhist perspective, there's no beginning point to the universe, just an endless cycle of cosmic expansion and contraction with no first cause needed to explain existence. So how do these abstract concepts connect to becoming one in your everyday life? Through practice. Buddhism is fundamentally a path of transformation through direct experience, not intellectual assent to doctrines. This path is structured around the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. The Four Noble Truths are the Buddha's diagnosis and treatment plan for the human condition. The first noble truth is dukkha, the truth of suffering or unsatisfactoriness. This isn't mere pessimism, but a realistic assessment of our experience. Life involves pain, loss, and ultimately death, and even our pleasures are tinged with impermanence. The second noble truth identifies the cause of suffering as craving or clinging. We suffer not just because pain exists, but because we grasp at pleasure and recoil from pain, constantly seeking to establish a secure position in an inherently insecure world. The third noble truth offers hope. The cessation of suffering is possible. When craving ceases, suffering ceases. This isn't just theory, but the lived experience of the Buddha and countless practitioners since. The fourth noble truth is the path leading to this cessation, the Noble Eightfold Path. This is the practical roadmap for becoming one. The Eightfold Path consists of 8 interrelated aspects of practice. Right view involves understanding the Four Noble Truths and seeing reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. Right intention is the commitment to renunciation, goodwill, and harmlessness, orienting our motivations toward liberation and compassion. Righty speech means abstaining from lying, divisive speech, harsh words, and idle chatter, instead speaking what is true, helpful, and timely. Right action involves abstaining from killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct, physically conducting ourselves in ways that reflect compassion and respect. Right livelihood means earning our living in ways that don't cause harm to others or ourselves. Right effort is about cultivating wholesome mind states and abandoning unwholesome ones, the ongoing work of mental cultivation. Right mindfulness involves maintaining awareness of our body, feelings, mind, and mental objects, being fully present with our experience. Right concentration is the development of focused attention and meditative absorption, calming the mind to see clearly. These 8 aspects work together as an integrated practice, not a sequential checklist. They represent a holistic approach to transformation that encompasses every aspect of our lives. So how can you begin this journey of becoming one? Here are practical steps you can take today. Mindfulness. Practice is the foundation. The foundation of Buddhist transformation is developing awareness of your present experience. Start simply. Set aside 10 minutes daily to sit quietly and notice your breath. When your mind wanders, as it certainly will, gently return attention to the sensation of breathing. Don't fight thoughts or try to empty your mind. Simply notice whatever arises without getting caught in it. Ethical living provides the foundation for deeper practice. Choose one precept to focus on for a week and observe how it affects your experience. For example, you might practice completely truthful speech for 7 days, noticing the impulses to exaggerate, minimize, or distort, and choosing clarity instead. Pay attention to how this changes your relationships and your relationship with yourself. Cultivating compassion expands your sense of connection to others. Begin with a simple, loving kindness meditation. Sit quietly and bring to mind someone you care about deeply. Notice the natural warmth that arises. Silently offer wishes for their well-being. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be safe. May you live with ease. Then gradually extend these same wishes to yourself, to neutral people in your life, to difficult people, and eventually to all beings. This practice dissolves the artificial boundaries between self-care and care for others. It recognizes that genuine well-being is interdependent. Your happiness affects others, and theirs affects you. As your circle of concern widens, you experience directly what it means to become one through compassion. Seeking knowledge is essential for clarifying your understanding. The Buddha encouraged questioning and investigation, not blind acceptance of teachings. Read books, compare different perspectives, and see what resonates with your experience. Study not just to accumulate information, but to challenge your assumptions about yourself and reality. Finding community provides support and guidance. Buddhism has always been practiced in community, sangha, with good reason. Connect with others who are walking this path. Their experience can help illuminate your own, and the collective energy of group practice can sustain you when motivation wanes. These practices aren't about believing in something new. They're about examining your existing beliefs and experiencing what lies beyond conceptual thinking. Through mindfulness, you can experience moments where the boundary between self and other dissolves, giving you a taste of becoming one. Remember that this path is gradual. The Buddha compared it to the ocean, which deepens gradually, not suddenly dropping off. Each moment of practice creates causes and conditions for insight to arise. Trust the process and be patient with yourself, so now you see the full picture. No God pulling the strings, no cosmic judge, just you, the path, and the raw truth of existence. But the real question is, what will you do with that truth? On a crisp autumn morning in Japan, a Zen student approached his teacher with a question that had troubled him for months. "I've been practicing diligently, but I still haven't found my true Buddha nature. Where should I look?" The master pointed to a maple tree shedding its crimson leaves. "Do you see how the tree effortlessly releases what no longer serves it? Your Buddha nature is like that, not something to find, but something to uncover by letting go. We began this journey exploring why Buddhists don't believe in God, at least not in the sense of an all-powerful creator separate from creation. The Buddhist approach isn't about rejecting God and replacing him with nothing. It's about discovering the extraordinary potential that already exists within you. By understanding why Buddhists don't believe in a creator God, you've opened the door to a profound truth. The power to awaken lies within you. It invites you to look directly at your experience with fresh eyes. The one you can become isn't separate from who you already are beneath the layers of conditioning and habitual patterns. It's your fundamental nature, temporarily obscured by clouds of confusion that meditation and ethical living gradually disperse. The Vietnamese teacher Thich Nhat Hanh puts it simply: the miracle is not to walk on water. The miracle is to walk on the green earth, dwelling deeply in the present moment and feeling truly alive. This ordinary miracle is available to you right now, not through divine intervention, but through your own awareness. If you take one thing from this video, let it be this: you don't need external permission or validation to begin this journey. You don't need to call yourself Buddhist or adopt any particular identity. The Buddha himself said his teachings were like a raft, useful for crossing the river, but not something to carry once you reach the other shore. Start where you are. 10 minutes of mindfulness practice daily will teach you more than hours of philosophical study. One interaction where you pause before reacting habitually holds more wisdom than memorizing sutras. One moment of genuine compassion for yourself or another reveals more about becoming one than any theological debate. The I journey begins now with this breath, this moment, this realization. You already have everything you need.